My stepsister stormed in with lawyers at my husband's funeral, started yelling, and claimed she was his secret wife and the new owner of his $120 million car showroom. I was shocked. How could that be possible? I stayed calm, smiled, and handed her an envelope. Her happiness turned into tears because inside the envelope was. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman telling a story like this, one that sounds more like a movie than real life. But this isn't fiction. It happened to me. Every word, every moment, painfully real. My name is Maya Thompson. I'm 33, an interior designer by profession, and until a few months ago, I thought I had it all: love, success, stability. My husband, Ryan Thompson, was my world. He was more than just my partner. He was my home. Ryan was a successful businessman, the owner of one of the most luxurious car showroom chains in Los Angeles. His business was worth over $120 million, but you'd never guess that from how down-to-earth he was. That was the man I fell in love with, someone who never let money define him. We'd been married for 6 years. Sure, like every couple, we had our ups and downs, but there was love, real love. And just when life felt the most comfortable, the most whole, it shattered. It was a rainy Friday afternoon when everything changed. Ryan was returning from a meeting in Santa Monica. I got a call from the police. There had been an accident. They told me he didn't make it. I remember dropping my phone. The sound of it hitting the floor was the only thing that pulled me out of the screaming in my head. I rushed to the hospital hoping maybe they were wrong. But they weren't. Just like that, the man I had shared my life with was gone. The days that followed were a blur. I barely ate. I barely slept. I walked around the house in silence, surrounded by memories I wasn't ready to let go of. The funeral came faster than I was prepared for. Friends and family came, offered their condolences, whispered words that meant nothing in that moment. But nothing prepared me for what was about to happen at the funeral. She arrived dressed in black, like everyone else, except she wasn't crying. She wasn't mourning. She was waiting. That was Vanessa Gray, my stepsister. We hadn't spoken in years. Growing up, we were never close.
She always resented me.
Said I had everything handed to me while she had to fight for scraps. But I never imagined that one day she'd show up at my husband's funeral with a team of lawyers. Everyone, I have something to announce, she said, standing by Ryan's casket like she had any right. According to Ryan's last will and testament, I, Vanessa Gray, am the rightful beneficiary of all his assets, including the $120 million business. I froze. People started whispering. I could feel the heat rising in my chest. What are you talking about? I managed to say, my voice shaking. She handed a folder to one of the lawyers, who walked over and gave it to me. Inside were documents, a will, marriage papers, everything claiming that Ryan and Vanessa had been secretly married and that he had transferred all his business and assets to her. He married me 2 years ago, she said with a smug smile. We kept it private. For legal reasons. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her and shake her and ask her what kind of sick joke this was. But I didn't. I just stood there, my hands trembling as I flipped through the pages. Everything looked real.
Signed. Stamped.
Legal. I couldn't sleep that night. My head was spinning. Had Ryan really betrayed me like this? Married my own stepsister behind my back? Was everything we had a lie? 2 days later, things got worse. I decided to go to Ryan's office to talk to his board, to figure out what was going on. But when I walked in, Vanessa was already there, sitting in Ryan's chair like she owned the place. Her heels were on his desk, a glass of champagne in her hand. Didn't expect to see you here, she said, not even looking up. This isn't yours, I told her. You need to leave. She laughed, cold and sharp.
Oh, Maya.
You still don't get it, do you? I'm the CEO now. Ryan made sure of that. If you don't believe me, ask the guards. Before I could say another word, 2 security guards walked in. Ma'am, we've been instructed to escort you out, one said. Instructed? By her? Yes, ma'am. She's now listed as owner and CEO. We have documentation. They didn't touch me, but the humiliation was enough. I turned around and walked out of that building, my heart pounding. I felt like I had walked into someone else's nightmare. That place, that business, it was built by Ryan and me. I was with him through every showroom opening, every late-night meeting, every success and failure. And now I was being thrown out like I never existed. The next morning, I pulled myself together and called Daniel Ross, our family's legal advisor for over a decade. He'd known Ryan just as well as I did. When I told him everything, he was just as shocked. Vanessa? That doesn't even make sense. Ryan never even liked her, he said. She says they were married. She has a will, Daniel, and marriage papers. We'll get to the bottom of this, he assured me. Leave it to me. But I didn't stop there. I needed someone who could dig deeper, someone who could find what wasn't written on paper. That's when Daniel introduced me to Detective Laura Briggs, a sharp, no-nonsense woman with years of experience in fraud and forgery. If there's a lie in those documents, she told me, I'll find it. And that's when the tables began to turn, though I didn't know it yet. I had no idea what Vanessa had done, or how far she was willing to go. But I was about to find out. And so was she. From that moment on, I knew I couldn't let this go. I had lost Ryan, but I wasn't going to lose everything we built together, not to someone like Vanessa. I spent the next few days in constant contact with Daniel and Detective Laura. They were both quick and sharp, but what surprised me most was how calm they stayed while I was falling apart. Laura told me to be patient, to trust the process. And even though it was hard, I listened. I had no idea where to start. Everything Vanessa submitted, her supposed marriage certificate, the will, the asset transfer, looked perfectly legal. But Laura kept telling me, even the best liars leave small cracks. We just have to find one. And she did. The first red flag showed up 3 days into the investigation. Laura called me in and placed a printed email on the table. Look at this, she said. It was an automated notary service confirmation. A digital trail that said the marriage certificate Vanessa submitted was processed on a date that didn't match what was on the paper. The actual creation date was months after Ryan's death, not before. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but it was a crack. That's impossible, I whispered. She said they were married 2 years ago. Well, Laura said, according to this, the marriage certificate was registered just 2 weeks ago. That's not just suspicious. That's criminal. From that moment, everything began to unravel. Laura traced back the fake notary, and with Daniel's help, they found out that the person who had supposedly notarized the will hadn't worked in that office for over a year. The signature on the documents? Forged. The stamps? Bought online. Vanessa had pieced together a believable lie using just enough real-looking materials to fool most people. But she couldn't fool everyone. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet. I didn't go to the media. I didn't confront Vanessa. I wanted her to feel comfortable, to think she had won. Because when people think they've won, that's when they get sloppy. One afternoon, I decided to visit Ryan's grave. I hadn't been back since the funeral. I sat there with flowers in my hand, unsure of what to say. Then I spoke. I'm sorry I didn't see it coming. She used your name to destroy everything we had. But I promise you, Ryan, I will fix this. She's not going to walk away with your name, your work, or your legacy. That night, Daniel came over with news. Laura got a hit, he said, smiling. He placed a folder in front of me. Pictures, receipts, emails. Everything connecting Vanessa to a forgery ring she had used to fake legal documents for previous clients. Turns out, she'd done this before. Not on this scale, but enough to show a pattern. She had never been caught because no one fought back. But this time, she made it personal. The next morning, we filed an official legal complaint. Within 24 hours, a court hearing was scheduled. Vanessa didn't see it coming. I still remember the look on her face when she walked into the courtroom and saw me sitting there beside Daniel and Laura. Her confident smirk faded just a little. The judge asked her to present her documents. Her lawyers spoke with confidence, until Laura stood up. Your Honor, she said, the documents presented by the defendant are falsified. We have digital records proving altered dates, forged signatures, and illegally obtained notary seals. She handed the judge a full binder of evidence. Vanessa shifted in her seat. Her hands were clasped tightly, her jaw clenched. For the first time, I saw her nervous. The judge looked over the files for a few moments, then turned to Vanessa. "Miss Gray, how do you respond to these accusations?" She stayed silent for a beat, then said, "They're lying. Ryan loved me. He wanted me to have everything. But the truth doesn't need stories. It just needs proof. And we had plenty of it." Outside the courtroom during a break, Vanessa finally approached me. Her tone had changed, less arrogant, more desperate. "Maya, listen, maybe we can work something out. We're family." I stared at her, and for a moment I almost laughed. "Family?
You stole from me.
You used Ryan's death to try and ruin me. You forged everything. You stood at his funeral and lied to everyone. You think I'd ever call you family again?" Her eyes narrowed. "You think you've won?" "No," I said calmly. "I know I have." Later that day, the court froze all business assets until the matter was officially resolved. Vanessa's access was cut off. The company board reinstated me as interim CEO pending the final ruling. I walked back into that office again, not as a widow kicked out by guards, but as someone who had fought her way back. But I knew it wasn't over yet. Vanessa was cornered, but she wasn't finished. And something told me she wasn't going to go down quietly. At least not without one final move. When I walked back into that office, it felt different. Not just because I was finally sitting in the chair Vanessa had stolen, but because I wasn't the same woman anymore. Grief had cracked me open. Betrayal had shaken me, but what rose out of it was someone stronger. I wasn't there to take revenge out of anger. I was there to take back what was mine, with proof, with patience, and with the law on my side. But just when I thought Vanessa had no cards left to play, she made her next move. The very next morning, I got a letter hand-delivered to my house. A legal notice. She was suing me for defamation, emotional distress, and what she called harassment and character damage. It was a bold attempt to flip the script, to act like she was the victim. Daniel came over right away and read through the notice. He shook his head slowly and said, "This is desperate. She's grasping at straws now. But we'll counter it in court. Just don't respond emotionally." "I'm not scared," I told him, and I wasn't lying. I was tired, sure. But fear had left me the moment I saw her lies unravel. Laura, on the other hand, was already 2 steps ahead. "Let her dig her own hole," she said. "Because we've got more." She wasn't bluffing. Over the next few days, Laura uncovered video footage from a small notary office outside Los Angeles, the one Vanessa had used to process her fake documents. In that footage, Vanessa was seen walking in with blank legal forms, asking for stamps. The notary, unaware of her real intentions, stamped the pages, but never signed anything. Then she left, and Vanessa forged the rest herself. It was all on camera. I still remember sitting in Laura's office, watching the footage. My hands were shaking, not with fear, but with relief. We had her. It was clear, undeniable, and enough to destroy any claim she had. "Are we ready to end this?" Laura asked me, her voice steady. "Yes," I said. "Let's finish it." The second court hearing came faster than I expected. This time, Vanessa's usual confidence was gone. Her lawyers looked tense. Her eyes darted around the room, trying to read every face. Laura presented the video footage first. It played in silence, the courtroom so still you could hear people breathe. Then came the emails, the bank transactions, the notary's official statement confirming she never legally witnessed any signatures. Piece by piece, Vanessa's story was torn apart. When the judge turned to her, asking for an explanation, she tried to spin another lie. "I didn't know those documents weren't real," she said. "Someone gave them to me. I thought they were legal." The judge cut her off. "You were seen forging them on video. You knowingly submitted false documents to this court, misrepresented your relationship with the deceased, and attempted to fraudulently acquire assets worth over $120 million. This is not a misunderstanding, Miss Gray. This is criminal." There was no room left to run. Vanessa's lawyers requested a recess. I stepped outside the courtroom and sat quietly on a bench in the hallway, staring at the marble floors. I thought of Ryan. I thought of how he used to say, "No matter what, Maya, you always take the high road. Let people play dirty. You stay clean." I never expected the high road to be this hard, but it was worth every step. Laura walked over and sat beside me. "She's finished," she said. "The DA is reviewing the case now. Fraud, forgery, and impersonation. They're filing charges." And just like that, it was real. Not just a fight anymore, not just courtroom drama. Vanessa was going to be arrested. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just let out a breath I didn't even know I'd been holding. It wasn't joy I felt. It was closure. The next few hours moved fast. A court order was issued to return all assets to me immediately. Vanessa's access to any accounts, properties, or company decisions was revoked. The business was mine again. But more than that, it felt like Ryan's name was finally cleared of the stain she tried to put on it. Later that night, I stood in Ryan's office alone. His jacket still hung behind the door. The faint smell of his cologne still lingered on the fabric. I sat in his chair, not because I wanted power, but because I wanted to remember. "I did it, Ryan," I whispered. "She tried to destroy everything, but I didn't let her. I kept my promise." I turned off the lights and locked the door behind me. I didn't need to sit in his place anymore. I had found my own. But deep down, I knew this wasn't completely over. Vanessa was out of moves, but she hadn't faced the real consequences yet. I'd taken back what she tried to steal. But justice, real justice, was still waiting. And it was coming for her. The morning Vanessa was arrested, I was drinking coffee on my porch. I hadn't slept much the night before. Even though everything had gone in my favor, I still felt like I was holding my breath. When I saw the police car pull up outside her condo on the news, a quiet stillness came over me. They walked her out in handcuffs, wearing a plain gray sweater, no makeup, no high heels, just a woman stripped of her lies. It wasn't joy I felt. It was something colder. Smoother. A kind of calm revenge I hadn't expected. People often think revenge is loud. That it's shouting, throwing things, screaming into the night. But mine was silent. Clean. Legal. It didn't need violence or drama. Just truth and patience, and the right people beside me. Vanessa's arrest made headlines. Legal advisor caught in $120 million inheritance fraud, they called it. Her photo was plastered everywhere, her past finally catching up with her. Every fake will, every forged paper, every lie she whispered with confidence, it all caught fire in the end. When the court moved forward with the criminal charges, Daniel and Laura sat with me to explain what came next. Vanessa was facing multiple counts of fraud, forgery, identity theft, and attempted grand larceny. Each carried serious prison time. Daniel looked at me and asked gently, "Do you want to press full charges? It's your choice." I nodded without hesitation. Yes. I want her held accountable for everything she did. Not just to me, but to Ryan. Laura agreed. She didn't just steal documents. She tried to erase your place in your husband's life. That kind of betrayal deserves the full weight of justice. Vanessa's trial came months later. I didn't attend every session, but I made sure to be there the day she was sentenced. The judge didn't hold back. "You knowingly falsified legal documents to claim ownership of a business and estate you had no right to. You manipulated the system, attempted to defraud this court, and showed no remorse until you were caught." Vanessa was sentenced to 12 years in prison, with no possibility of parole for at least 6. She stood there in silence, jaw tight, eyes empty. She didn't look at me once. And I didn't need her to. I had already moved past her. After the sentencing, I stepped outside the courtroom and looked up at the sky. It was one of those clear LA days, bright, blue, quiet. I wasn't sure what I expected to feel. Relief? Victory? Maybe a mix of both. But mostly, I felt free. In the months that followed, I returned to work. Slowly. Quietly. The car showrooms were running again, smoother than ever. I kept most of the old team. I didn't change much. Ryan's systems were solid, and I wanted to honor that. I added a few touches of my own: warm lighting, customer lounge areas, even a small art display in each location, all from local artists. Something that made the place feel more human. One day, I found myself sitting across from Daniel in the office where this all started. He looked at me and said, "You know, most people would have lost their mind through this. You stayed calm, clear-headed. I've seen people with far less reason fall apart." I smiled a little. I think I had to lose everything first to realize how strong I really am. Laura visited me a few times too. She never called it a case anymore. Just said, "I'll stop by for coffee." We didn't talk about Vanessa much. We didn't need to. There was nothing left to say. Eventually, people stopped asking about what happened. The headlines faded. Life moved on. But I didn't forget. Not because I was bitter, but because remembering made me stronger. It reminded me what I survived. Sometimes I still think about how it all started. Ryan's sudden death. The shock at the funeral. The humiliation in his office. The nights I cried, wondering if everything I believed about our marriage was a lie. But now I know, he never betrayed me.
She did.
And that difference changed everything. I still visit Ryan's grave, not out of sadness, but to talk. I tell him how the company's doing. How I redecorated the house like I always wanted. How I finally planted that lemon tree he kept saying would never grow in LA. I tell him how I stood up for myself, how I didn't let her win. And every time, I leave a single white rose, his favorite. Looking back, I think what hurt the most wasn't just what Vanessa tried to steal, but that she did it pretending to be family. She stood beside me at a funeral and looked me in the eye while lying through her teeth. That kind of coldness changes you. But I refuse to let it break me. This story, my story, isn't just about betrayal. It's about rebuilding. About knowing who you are, even when someone tries to erase you. It's about fighting back, not with anger, but with facts. With truth. With dignity. I didn't need revenge that burned. I needed one that left no ashes behind. And I got it.